The night it all truly began. The rain was hitting the windows hard enough to sound like warning knocks. Madison Hale stood in the dim kitchen of their Newark home, hands wrapped around a chipped mug of cold tea she had reheated twice. The house was too quiet for 9:47 p.m. Her husband, Connor, should have been home hours ago. He had said the same line he'd been using for months. "Late meeting in Manhattan, don't wait up." But Madison waited anyway. She always did. When the headlights finally swept across the driveway, her stomach tightened. Connor stepped inside with his charcoal suit slightly wrinkled, his citizen watch glinting under the entryway light. And there it was again, the faint, sugary perfume. Not hers. Not any perfume she could afford. She swallowed. "Connor, were you really at work this late?" He didn't flinch. "Madison, for God's sake, not this again."
"You're imagining things."
He brushed past her, leaving cold air and something darker behind him. What Madison didn't know was that her world wasn't just cracking. It was about to collapse. Not because of a missed dinner, or the perfume, or even the lies she was slowly drowning in, but because her 7-year-old daughter, Harper, had seen something she shouldn't have. Something that would shatter the fragile piece Madison kept patching together. And that night, as Madison tucked Harper into bed, she felt her daughter cling to her a little tighter than usual. She didn't know why. She didn't ask. Her heart was already too bruised to handle another truth. The real storm hadn't hit yet. It would come the next morning, soft, innocent, unexpected, when Harper finally whispered the sentence that would end a marriage, expose every lie, and force Madison to choose between the family she fought to keep and the little girl quietly breaking under the weight of secrets adults shouldn't have created. And that sentence would change everything. The next morning, sunlight crept through the blinds, hitting the stack of overdue bills on the kitchen counter. Madison Hale rubbed her temples, her iPhone 11 buzzing non-stop with school reminders, library schedules, and a text from Grace asking if she was okay. She didn't answer. She didn't have the strength to type the truth she kept pretending wasn't real. Connor walked in wearing a crisp navy shirt, already dressed for another meeting in Manhattan. He barely looked at her as he poured coffee into his stainless steel tumbler. "You're taking Harper to school, right?" Madison asked softly. Connor sighed, annoyed. "I told you, I have an early strategy call on Fifth Avenue. Can't you handle it?" She forced a nod, swallowing the sting. She always handled it. She handled everything. But it wasn't the missed school run that hurt. It was the way he didn't even glance at Harper's drawing stuck on the fridge, a family picture where his figure was fading, almost erased by a child's accidental truth. Harper came down the stairs dragging her little backpack, her curls messy, her eyes still shadowed. "Mommy, are you coming to read to my class today?" Madison froze. She had forgotten, completely. I'll try, sweetheart." Connor chuckled under his breath. "See? And you wonder why things fall apart." It was the kind of sentence he threw lightly, carelessly, but it sliced through her. Madison felt the familiar burn, shame mixed with quiet fury. She wanted to say something, anything, but the words died in her throat. As Connor grabbed his keys, his phone lit up on the counter. A name flashed across the screen. Sophia Mercer. Again. Madison looked away quickly, pretending she hadn't seen. Pretending was easier than acknowledging the cold truth tapping at her ribs. Connor noticed her silence. "Don't start," he muttered. "You're too sensitive." Then he left. Just like that. Door slamming, engine roaring. The Mercedes disappearing down the street. Madison stood there in the quiet kitchen, Harper hugging her leg, the world feeling heavier than it did last night. Something was breaking, quietly but unmistakably. A seam in her marriage was tearing open, one she no longer had hands strong enough to sew back together. And the worst part? She didn't know the tear had already spread, and her daughter was carrying a piece of that pain alone. By lunchtime, the library was unusually quiet. Madison sat behind the circulation desk, mechanically scanning returns while her mind floated somewhere far from New Jersey Public Library. Her phone vibrated twice, then a third time. It was Grace. "We need to talk. Now." Before Madison could type a reply, the glass doors swung open and Grace rushed in, still wearing her beige trench coat, cheeks flushed from the cold. She didn't bother with greetings. "Madison, I saw Connor yesterday." Madison's hands froze over a stack of children's books. "At work?" "No." Grace's voice softened. "At Bryant Park. With someone." The air in the library seemed to shift. The hum of the heater, the soft footsteps on carpet, even the distant rustle of pages, all of it faded. "Sophia?" Madison whispered. Grace hesitated. That hesitation said everything. "She was touching his arm like they were familiar," Grace finally said. "It didn't look like business." Madison's throat tightened. She grabbed onto the desk edge to steady herself. "Grace, he said he had a late meeting. He always says that." Grace exhaled, choosing her words carefully. "You deserve the truth, even if it hurts." But Madison wasn't ready. Not really. Not for the image forming in her mind. Connor laughing in the Manhattan winter light. Sophia leaning close, his lies reaching deeper than she feared. "I'm probably overreacting," Madison murmured. "Maybe it was innocent. Maybe—" "Madison," Grace leaned in. "I know what I saw." Just then, a small boy dropped a stack of books nearby, jolting Madison back to the present. She knelt to help him, her hands trembling. He smiled at her, unaware of the avalanche happening inside her ribs. When he ran back to his mother, Grace crouched beside Madison. "You can't keep living in doubt," Grace said gently. "Harper feels it. You feel it. Something's wrong." Madison closed her eyes. She thought of the perfume, the texts, the hotel receipt she had pretended was a misunderstanding, and Harper's tired little face that morning. But still, she whispered the old lie she used to comfort herself. "Maybe he's just stressed." Grace's expression softened with heartbreak. "Madison, stress doesn't smell like another woman." The sentence hit hard, too hard. Madison blinked rapidly, staring at the library floor as if it could offer answers. A truth was approaching, loud, undeniable, impossible to outrun. And this time, it wouldn't come from Grace. It would come from Harper. That Friday night, the Hale house felt colder than usual, even with the heater humming. Madison stood at the stove warming leftover pasta, while Harper colored quietly at the table, her little feet swinging above the floor. It should have been an ordinary night, but something in the air felt off, heavy, waiting. Connor texted at 6:12 p.m. "Running late, big client dinner. Don't wait up." The same script, the same hollow feeling. Madison typed a simple "okay," then deleted it, then typed it again. Finally, she set the phone down without sending anything. What was the point? They were living like polite strangers sharing a mortgage. At 7:03, Harper looked up from her drawing. "Is Daddy eating with us?" Madison forced a smile. "Not tonight, honey." "Oh." Harper went back to coloring, but slower now, pressing harder on the paper, as if trying to bury something beneath the crayons. After dinner, Madison washed dishes, while Harper watched cartoons in the living room. The quiet felt suffocating, like a question with no answer. She wiped her hands on a towel and reached for her phone. A message from Grace waited there. "Are you sitting down?" Madison's heart lurched. She replied, "What happened?" A photo came through, grainy, probably taken from far away, but clear enough. Connor, standing outside the Plaza Hotel, with Sophia Mercer beside him, her hand on his chest, laughing up at him like they were sharing a secret. Madison felt the ground shift. Her breath came out shaky. She sat on the edge of the couch, phone trembling in her hands. She tried to convince herself it wasn't what it looked like. But the truth was right there, frozen in pixels, undeniable. She didn't cry. Not yet. The numbness wrapped around her like armor. But behind her, Harper peeked around the hallway corner. Madison didn't know the little girl had been watching her for minutes, studying the way her mother's face crumpled even though she tried to hide it. Harper clutched her stuffed koala tighter. "Mommy, did Daddy hurt your feelings?" she asked softly. Madison blinked hard, shoving the phone under a pillow. "No, baby, I'm okay." But she wasn't. Something inside her had cracked so loudly, she was amazed Harper couldn't hear it. And upstairs, her daughter was gathering a secret of her own, one she hadn't found the courage to share yet. The secret that would end the marriage forever. Saturday morning arrived with a thin layer of frost on the windows, the kind that made the whole world look fragile. Madison stood in the kitchen stirring oatmeal for Harper when she saw Connor's Mercedes pull into the driveway. He hadn't come home the night before. No text, no call. He walked in like nothing was wrong, hair neatly styled, shirt crisp, the faint trace of Sophia's perfume still clinging to him. Madison felt it instantly, like a slap she didn't see coming. "You didn't come home," she said quietly. Connor shrugged out of his coat. "I told you, big client dinner. I stayed with the team at the Westlake Hotel. It was late." Madison froze. "The Westlake?" "Yeah. Why?" Connor asked casually, pouring himself coffee. She swallowed hard. Grace had taken that photo outside the Plaza Hotel, not the Westlake. Not even close. "Nothing," Madison whispered. "Just asking." Connor didn't notice the way her voice cracked, or maybe he did and simply didn't care. He scrolled through his phone, smirking faintly at something. A message from Sophia, no doubt. Harper padded into the kitchen wearing her unicorn pajamas. She stopped a few feet from her dad, hesitant, unsure. Something she never used to be. "Hi, Daddy," she murmured. Connor glanced down briefly. "Hey, kiddo." No hug, no warmth. Madison's heart twisted. As Harper sat to eat, Madison pulled out a crumpled receipt she had found earlier that morning while doing laundry. It had been in Connor's pants pocket. A bar charge, 2 cocktails. The Plaza Hotel Lounge, 1:12 a.m. She set it on the counter silently. Connor barely looked at it. "That's from a client meeting. Don't start drama." "A client meeting at a hotel bar past 1 in the morning?" Madison whispered. "For God's sake, Madison," he snapped. "You're paranoid. This is why things feel strained. You create problems that aren't there." She swallowed her anger, her humiliation, her heartbreak, because Harper was watching. Spoon paused mid-air. Connor grabbed his keys again. "I need to get back to the office. Try not to overthink everything." Then he kissed the top of Harper's head, skipped Madison entirely, and walked out. The door clicked shut. Harper climbed off her chair, walked to her mother, and wrapped her arms around Madison's leg. "Mommy, Daddy lied again. I heard." Madison's breath hitched. She hadn't realized the truth was no longer hers alone. That night, the house felt unbearably still. Madison sat on the couch with the lights off, staring at a cracked spot on the wall, as if it held answers. Harper had finally fallen asleep, curled up with her stuffed koala, after asking one too many heartbreaking questions Madison couldn't answer. When her phone buzzed, she expected Grace, but it was Connor. "Don't wait up. Late work again." Late work. Again. The same script he didn't even try to rewrite. Madison set the phone face down as a wave of exhaustion washed over her. Not the kind that sleep could fix, but the kind that came from carrying a collapsing marriage on shoulders that had grown too tired. On the coffee table, her old Kindle blinked open to a page she had highlighted months ago from Women Who Run with the Wolves. A woman's deepest wounds are often inflicted in silence. Tonight, that line hit differently. Her eyes blurred. She pressed both hands over her mouth to keep from sobbing too loudly, terrified of waking Harper. Tears spilled through her fingers anyway, hot, relentless, grieving the life she had tried so impossibly hard to protect. For years, she believed loyalty could fix anything. For months, she believed Connor could still choose them. For weeks, she had ignored every warning sign. But for the first time, she felt herself slipping under.
The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the slow, painful realization that she no longer recognized the man she married. A knock jolted her. She wiped her eyes quickly and opened the door a crack. Their elderly neighbor, Mrs. Dalton, stood in a robe, holding a small container.
"Saw your lights still on," she whispered. "Made extra chicken soup. Thought you might need it." Madison's throat tightened. "Thank you. It's been a long day." Mrs. Dalton hesitated. "Sweetheart, people don't cry like that over small things." That simple sentence broke through whatever thin shield Madison had left. She nodded, unable to speak. Mrs. Dalton squeezed her hand gently before leaving. "You're stronger than you think." When Madison closed the door, she pressed her back against it, breathing shakily. Upstairs, Harper shifted in her sleep, murmuring, "Mommy?" Madison looked up.
If not for herself, she had to survive this for her daughter. But she had no idea the biggest wound, Harper's secret, was still waiting to be revealed. By Monday afternoon, Madison could no longer pretend everything was normal. She had barely slept. Her eyes were tired, her voice thin, and even the librarians noticed she moved like someone carrying invisible weight. When Grace insisted she see a couples therapist, just once, just to get clarity, Madison finally agreed. Connor arrived 10 minutes late. He walked into the therapist's warm, softly lit office with the confidence of a man who believed he had already won. His navy blazer was immaculate, his hair perfect, his lies polished. "Sorry," he said, sliding into the couch. "Traffic from Manhattan." Madison stared at him. She had checked traffic. There wasn't any. Dr. Leland, a calm woman in her 50s with silver glasses, greeted them gently.
"Let's start with what brought you here." Madison opened her mouth, but Connor beat her to it. "My wife has been stressed," he said smoothly. "Overly emotional, imagining things. I'm here to support her." The words sliced through Madison, quiet but deadly. Stressed, overly emotional, imagining things. She felt her nails dig into her palms. Connor didn't look at her. He looked at Dr. Leland, selling a performance he'd practiced for years. Dr. Leland turned to Madison. "Is that how you feel?" Madison's voice cracked. "No, I feel alone." Connor sighed loudly. "Here we go." Madison flinched. "Connor," Dr. Leland said firmly, "please let her speak." He leaned back, annoyed but silent. Madison tried again, her voice trembling. "He comes home late. He lies." "I don't lie," Connor snapped. "I work." "Sorry if that bothers you." "And the perfume?" Madison whispered. "The hotel receipts? The picture outside the plaza?" Connor's jaw tightened. "She's twisting things. She always twists things." "I twist nothing!" Madison cried, startling even herself. Silence filled the room. Dr. Leland exhaled slowly. "Connor, deflection doesn't solve problems." Connor scoffed. "This is pointless. She's paranoid. Even our daughter knows she overreacts." Madison's heart stuttered. "Harper said that?" Connor looked away, realizing his mistake, but too late. Dr. Leland leaned forward. "Your daughter is involved?" Madison's breath shook. "She heard something. I don't know what yet." Connor stiffened. For the first time since they entered the room, he looked scared. Because Harper, their 7-year-old, was the only person who had witnessed the truth neither of them had said aloud.
And once her secret came out, Connor's entire story would collapse. That night, after the therapy session left her heart bruised and Connor furious, Madison tucked Harper into bed early. The little girl seemed restless, twisting the blanket between her fingers. Madison brushed her curls back gently. "Sweetheart," she whispered, "did Daddy say something to you? Something that made you think Mommy overreacts?" Harper's eyes widened, fearful, almost guilty.
"No, Mommy, I didn't say that. I promise."
Madison frowned. "But Daddy said—" Harper shook her head quickly.
"I didn't say anything bad about you."
The room felt suddenly too warm, the air too heavy. Madison sat on the edge of the bed, forcing her voice to stay steady. "Harper," she murmured, "you can tell me anything. I won't be mad." Harper hesitated. Her small chest rose and fell faster, her fingers clutching the stuffed koala so tight it looked painful. Then she whispered,
"Mommy, I heard Daddy on the phone."
Everything inside Madison froze.
What did you hear?"
she asked, barely breathing. Harper's voice trembled.
"He was talking to a lady. I heard him in the hallway when I got water."
Madison's heart pounded so hard she felt dizzy.
"What did he say, sweetheart?"
Harper glanced at the door, as if afraid Connor might appear. Then she leaned in, tiny lips close to Madison's ear.
"He said he wishes you wouldn't cling to him anymore."
The words hit Madison like a physical blow. She sucked in a breath, steadying herself. Harper wasn't finished.
"And the lady said—"
Harper's voice cracked.
"She said you're boring." And Daddy laughed. And then she said I'm just a kid and won't matter.
Madison felt her stomach twist violently.
Her daughter, her innocent 7-year-old, dragged into a betrayal she never asked to understand.
A tear slipped down Harper's cheek.
"Mommy, I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to make you sad."
Madison pulled her into her arms, holding her so tightly she felt their heartbeats collide.
"You didn't make me sad,"
she whispered, voice breaking.
"You're the only thing keeping me standing."
Harper buried her face in Madison's neck.
"I don't want Daddy to be mean to you anymore."
Madison closed her eyes. She had spent months trying to save her marriage, but now she realized she had to save her daughter first. And soon, she would have to face Connor with the truth Harper could no longer carry alone. The next day, Madison moved through the library like a ghost, shelving books she couldn't remember touching, smiling at patrons she couldn't really see. Harper's confession replayed in her head on a loop, each word slicing deeper than the last. Boring, clingy, doesn't matter. He had said those things about her, about their daughter, and he had laughed. By late afternoon, Madison felt sick, physically sick. She stepped outside for air, leaning against the cold brick wall of the building. Her breath puffed in little clouds. She closed her eyes. That's when her phone buzzed. It was Grace. "You need to see this, right now." Madison's stomach dropped. Please, no more, she thought. I can't take more today. But Grace wasn't the type to exaggerate. With shaking hands, Madison opened the message. A video. Her vision blurred for a moment before she forced herself to watch. Someone, Grace's friend, had recorded Connor and Sophia outside a high-end bar on Fifth Avenue. The camera zoomed in just enough to catch their faces. Their bodies were close, too close. Sophia laughed, touching Connor's chest. And then, Connor kissed her. Not a mistake, not a misunderstanding. A slow, deliberate kiss, full of familiarity. Madison felt her legs weaken. A woman passing by asked softly, "Ma'am, are you all right?" Madison nodded mechanically, though she wasn't sure she was standing on the ground anymore.
She walked back inside the library, numb, clutching her phone like it was a weapon. When her shift ended, she drove home in silence. Harper's voice echoed in her memory.
I don't want Daddy to be mean to you anymore.
She parked outside the house and sat there, staring at the front door where she had once felt safe. She remembered their first night there, moving boxes stacked everywhere, Connor carrying her across the threshold as they laughed. She didn't recognize that version of him anymore.
Inside, Harper was drawing on the living room floor. She looked up with a hopeful smile.
"Mommy, you're home!"
Madison forced herself to smile back, her heart shattering all over again. Because now she knew the truth. All of it. Not just suspicion, not fear, not intuition. Proof. Connor wasn't hers anymore, and maybe he never had been. By the end of the week, Madison felt like she was carrying two people inside her chest. One who wanted to scream, and one who just wanted to pretend everything was fine for Harper's sake. So when Harper shyly asked if they could go somewhere fun, Madison agreed before she could talk herself out of it. She needed space. Harper needed peace. And maybe, just maybe, a change of scenery could untangle the mess tightening around her ribs. Saturday morning, Madison packed a small overnight bag with sweaters, snacks, Harper's koala, and her old Kindle. She wrote a short note for Connor, though she didn't owe him one. Taking Harper on a short trip. We'll be back tomorrow. She didn't wait for his response. They drove north toward the small lakeside town she used to visit growing up, one of the few happy memories she had left untouched by Connor's shadow. As the highway opened up, Harper pressed her forehead to the window. "It's pretty," she whispered. Madison smiled softly. "I'm glad you think so, honey." When they arrived at the lodge, the air was crisp, carrying the faint smell of pine. Madison checked them into a simple room with 2 beds and a fireplace that flickered warmly. Harper immediately ran to the window to look at the lake. "Mommy, look! It's sparkly!" For the first time in days, Madison felt something close to relief. They spent the afternoon walking by the water, Harper skipping stones while Madison tried to breathe deeply, letting the wind clear her thoughts. Harper seemed lighter too, smiling more, asking questions, humming random songs. But beneath the peace, Madison felt a quiet ache. She wished Connor was the kind of man who would have been here with them. She wished she wasn't fighting for a marriage alone. She wished she didn't already know the truth she'd have to face when they returned. Back in the lodge that evening, they shared hot chocolate by the fire. Harper leaned against Madison's shoulder, warm and sleepy. "Mommy," she murmured. "Do you feel better now?" Madison kissed her forehead. "A little." Harper hesitated. "I like when you smile. I wish you smiled more." The words pierced her. Madison wrapped her arms around her daughter, pulling her close. Because tomorrow, they would go back home. To Connor. To the lies. To the decision she knew was coming. A decision she could no longer run from. By Sunday afternoon, Madison and Harper drove back home with the faint smell of pine still clinging to their jackets. Harper had fallen asleep in the back seat, her little hand loosely holding her stuffed koala. Madison kept glancing at her through the rearview mirror, wishing the peace of the lake could follow them into the house. But the moment she pulled into the driveway, her stomach tightened. Connor's Mercedes was already there. He was sitting on the porch steps, scrolling through his phone with an expression that wasn't worry. It was irritation, as if he'd been inconvenienced. When Madison stepped out of the car, he stood and crossed his arms. "You left without telling me?" he demanded.
"I left a note," she said calmly, opening Harper's door.
"That's not the same thing." She didn't respond. She lifted Harper gently, and the movement woke the child. Harper blinked groggily at her father.
"Hi, Daddy."
Connor forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Hey, kiddo. Have fun?" Harper nodded sleepily, but Madison saw the way she tightened her grip around her mother's shoulder. Connor noticed too, and his jaw twitched. Inside, Madison unpacked while Connor followed her like a storm cloud. "So what was this?" Some dramatic getaway? Trying to make a point? I took our daughter on a trip, Madison replied, keeping her voice level. Because she needed space. And so did I. Connor scoffed. You're being ridiculous. Madison stopped.
Connor, we can't keep pretending everything is fine.
Everything was fine, he snapped, until you started questioning me. She turned slowly, looking at him, really looking. His defensiveness, his anger, his guilt leaking through the cracks he tried to cover. Connor, she whispered. Harper heard you. She heard you on the phone. A flicker of panic flashed across his face before he masked it. She's a kid, he said quickly. She makes things up. She doesn't lie, Madison said firmly. Not about this. Connor opened his mouth, then shut it again. He looked away, rubbing the back of his neck, suddenly restless. Before he could recover, Harper appeared at the doorway, clutching her koala. Daddy, she said softly, you don't like Mommy anymore, do you? Connor froze. Madison felt her heart lurch.
Harper continued, voice trembling.
You told that lady Mommy is boring.
Silence dropped like a stone. Connor's face drained of color. And in that moment, the facade he'd held for months finally began to crumble. For a moment, the house went completely silent. Not the calm kind of silence, but the heavy, suffocating kind that wraps itself around your throat. Connor stood frozen in the doorway, staring at Harper, as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. Madison felt her knees weaken, but she stayed still because this moment wasn't about her pain. It was about her daughter's. Harper clutched her stuffed koala tighter. Daddy, why did you say that about Mommy? I heard you. You said she's boring and that she clings too much. Connor swallowed hard. Harper, sweetheart, you must have misunderstood. No, Harper's voice wobbled, but her eyes stayed locked on him. I heard you.
You were talking to that lady, the one who sounds like she smiles when she talks. Madison knew immediately. Sophia. Connor stepped closer, forcing a laugh that fell flat. Honey, adults say things they don't mean sometimes. You shouldn't.
You laughed, Harper whispered. You laughed when she said Mommy doesn't matter.
Madison felt something inside her tear open. Clean, brutal, final. She looked at her daughter, at the raw hurt etched onto that small face, and suddenly every ounce of denial she had been clinging to felt disgusting. Connor rubbed his temple. Madison, talk to her. She's confused. But Madison didn't move. No, she said quietly. She's not. Connor turned on her, frustration boiling over. So what? You're going to believe a child over your husband? Yes, Madison replied without hesitation.
Because she's the only one in this house who isn't lying. The color drained from Connor's face. Harper stepped back toward Madison, slipping her tiny hand into her mother's.
Mommy, I don't want you to cry anymore. I don't want Daddy to make you sad.
Madison crouched and hugged her, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. Thank you for telling me, she whispered. You did the right thing. Connor's voice rose. Madison, don't do this. You're blowing things out of proportion. She stood, meeting his eyes with a strength she didn't know she still had. This marriage ends tonight. Connor blinked. You're not serious. But Madison was already holding Harper close, her voice steady in a way it hadn't been for months. I'm done being invisible in my own home. And for the first time, Connor looked truly afraid, because he knew he had lost control.
Connor followed Madison down the hallway, his footsteps sharp, angry, almost frantic. He wasn't used to losing control, not at work, not in public, and especially not inside his own house. But tonight, the power he'd held over Madison for years was slipping through his fingers like water. Madison, he snapped. You're being dramatic. We can talk about this when you calm down. She opened the bedroom door and began pulling clothes from the dresser, hers and Harper's.
There's nothing left to talk about.
Connor scoffed. So you're just leaving? Over one misunderstanding? Madison didn't look at him.
It wasn't one, and it wasn't a misunderstanding.
He grabbed her arm, not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to warn. You're not walking out with my daughter. Madison pulled away sharply, fire rising in her voice.
She's our daughter. And she heard everything. She saw everything.
This, she gestured between them, is not a family anymore. Harper stood in the doorway, holding her koala to her chest, watching with wide, frightened eyes. Connor noticed her and softened his tone instantly, switching into the charming voice he used for crowds. Harper, Pumpkin. Daddy's sorry. Daddy just got stressed. I didn't mean any of it. Madison could practically taste the manipulation. Harper stepped behind her mother. Connor's mask cracked. Madison, he hissed, don't turn her against me. Madison zipped up the small suitcase. You did that all by yourself. He blocked the doorway. Where are you going to go? You can't even afford rent without me. The words were meant to strike a nerve. And they did, but not the way he expected. Madison straightened slowly, meeting his eyes with a calm he had never seen in her before.
I'd rather start from nothing, she said softly, and stay in a home built on lies. Connor stared at her stunned. He wasn't losing an argument. He was losing control, and he knew it. Madison took Harper's hand and moved past him. He didn't stop them this time. He couldn't. Something in her had changed, grown too strong, too certain to manipulate. At the front door, Harper looked back once, whispering, "Bye, Daddy." Connor stepped forward. Madison, if you leave now, you'll regret it. She opened the door without flinching. No, Connor, she said. The only thing I regret is staying this long. And with that, she stepped into the cold night, taking the last piece of light with her. Madison spent the night at Grace's apartment, curled up on the couch with Harper asleep on her chest. She barely slept, but for the first time in months, the silence didn't hurt. It soothed. No footsteps pacing, no accusing sighs, no perfume on a man who no longer belonged to her. Just breathing, just stillness. Connor, however, did not sleep at all. By morning, he looked like a man unraveling. His hair was disheveled, his tie crooked, his eyes red from pacing the house all night. He grabbed his phone and dialed Sophia first. No answer. He tried again. Still nothing. Finally, she picked up, sounding annoyed.
Connor, it's early.
Where were you? He demanded.
Why? So you can yell at me about your wife leaving? That's not my problem.
He froze. You told me you cared.
Connor, she sighed. I cared about the promotion, not the rest of this mess.
And just like that, the illusion shattered. She hung up before he could respond. He stood in the middle of the living room, angry, humiliated, terrified, all at once. The echo of Harper's little voice haunted him.
You said Mommy doesn't matter.
Those words landed harder now that his house was empty. When Connor finally arrived at work, late and unfocused, he walked straight into a conference room where his boss, Richard Dalton, waited with a stiff expression. Connor, Richard said, sliding a folder across the table. We've received a complaint. Connor blinked. A complaint? Richard leaned back. From Sophia Mercer. Connor felt the blood drain from his face. She's lying. She claims you pursued her, made her uncomfortable, crossed boundaries. That's not true, Connor exploded. She was the one. Richard held up a hand. We're placing you on temporary leave while HR investigates. Richard, please, Connor begged. This is a misunderstanding. But Richard's face didn't soften. You've been distracted, unreliable, erratic. And now this scandal? The board doesn't like bad press.
The meeting ended with Connor walking out of the glass tower he'd once bragged about, carrying a cardboard box of his belongings, his framed certificates, his Mont Blanc pen, his pride shattered. He sat in his Mercedes, stunned, trembling. His wife was gone. His daughter was afraid of him. His mistress had thrown him under the bus. His career was collapsing. Everything he thought he controlled was slipping away. And for the first time, Connor Hale finally realized he wasn't the victim. He was the cause. Madison woke up on Grace's couch with her neck stiff and her heart heavy, but Harper's small hand resting on her arm reminded her why she had to keep moving. The morning sunlight through the blinds was soft, almost forgiving. Grace handed her a warm cup of Starbucks coffee and a tired smile. "You did the right thing," Grace said.
Madison nodded, though doubt still clung to her like a second skin. "It doesn't feel like it yet." "That's because you're in the part where everything hurts before it gets better." Later that morning, while Harper played quietly with building blocks on the rug, Madison scrolled through her phone. Emails, overdue notices, a reminder about the library's budget cuts. Her life was a list of things she couldn't lose, yet had already started losing. Her eyes stung. She set the phone down, trying to steady her breathing. But the exhaustion of months, years, caught up to her all at once. The betrayal, the lies, the fight to keep a family that didn't want to be kept. Her chest tightened until a sob escaped before she could stop it. Grace rushed over. "Madison, hey, look at me." "I tried so hard," Madison whispered. "I did everything I could to save our marriage, and he still chose her." "No," Grace corrected gently. "He didn't choose her. He chose to be the kind of man who loses good things." Madison covered her face with both hands, shoulders shaking. The grief was deep, raw, almost physical. She felt like she was mourning a death, the death of the life she thought she'd have. Harper crawled into her lap without a word, wrapping her arms around her mother's waist. Madison held her tight, burying her face in her daughter's hair. "I'm sorry you saw me cry," she whispered. Harper shook her head. "It's okay, Mommy. I cry when someone hurts me, too." That simple truth hit Madison harder than anything else. Later, when Harper dozed off again, Madison found herself staring at her reflection in Grace's hallway mirror. Puffy eyes, messy hair, a woman who looked nothing like the hopeful bride she once was. But beneath the exhaustion, she saw something else. A spark. A beginning. A possibility she hadn't felt in years. She wasn't broken. She was bruised, but alive. Hurting, but still standing. And soon, she would discover she wasn't standing alone. Monday morning came early, with the kind of gray sky that made the whole world feel heavier. Madison got dressed quietly in Grace's guest room, pulling her hair into a soft bun, slipping into the same cardigan she wore on difficult days at the library. Harper was still asleep, curled under a blanket with her koala tucked beneath her chin. Madison stared at her daughter for a long moment. She deserved better. They both did. When Madison arrived at the library, she expected the familiar comfort of old books and routine. But today, she felt exposed, like everyone could somehow see the cracks in her life. She placed her bag behind the circulation desk and forced herself to breathe. She hadn't even settled when someone stepped inside. Oliver Stone, the CEO who occasionally visited to oversee the literacy programs he sponsored. Tall, polished, with a quiet presence that filled a room without trying. Today he wore a charcoal coat dusted with frost and held a leather folder under his arm. "Morning, Ms. Hale," he said kindly. Madison blinked, startled. "Oh, good morning, Mr. Stone." He studied her face for a moment. "Long weekend?" She tried to smile. "Something like that." He didn't push, but something in his expression softened. Oliver had a way of noticing things without prying, and today Madison felt that more than ever. "I actually came to discuss the Community Reading Initiative," he said, setting the folder on the desk. "I've been reviewing your program outlines. They're impressive." She stared at him. My outlines?
You looked at those?
I did, he said simply. You have a talent for engaging young readers. A warmth spread across her chest, small but real. She hadn't felt proud of anything in a long time. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. A message from Connor. We need to talk, now. Her stomach twisted. She locked the screen and slid the phone away. Oliver watched her carefully. If you ever need flexibility in your schedule, or support, don't hesitate to ask. Madison nodded, trying to keep her composure. Thank you. That means more than you know. As Oliver left, she exhaled shakily. For the first time, someone saw her, not as a wife, not as a mother, not as someone falling apart, but as a woman with value. She wasn't healed, not yet, but she was moving, forward, quietly, bravely. And with every step, she was getting closer to the life she deserved.
Connor showed up at the library that afternoon without warning. Madison was shelving books in the children's section when she heard the heavy footsteps, too fast, too purposeful. When she looked up, he was standing between the rows of shelves, hair disheveled, tie loosened, eyes frantic.
Madison, he said, voice strained. We need to talk. She straightened. This isn't the place. I don't care, he snapped. I need you to come home, now. His urgency didn't frighten her. It irritated her. Connor, lower your voice. There are kids here. He exhaled shakily, running a hand through his hair. Everything's falling apart. They put me on leave. HR's investigating me. Sophia. He stopped, jaw tightening. She lied. She told them I crossed boundaries. Madison crossed her arms. Did you? Of course not, he said instantly, too quickly. Madison raised an eyebrow. Connor dropped his gaze.
I need you to tell them, he said. Tell them I'm not the man she says I am. Tell them I'm faithful.
Madison stared at him, stunned.
Faithful? Connor, you kissed her outside the Plaza Hotel.
His face drained of color. Grace showed you that video?
It doesn't matter who showed me. It happened.
He stepped closer, desperate. Madison, please. I'm losing my job, my reputation, everything I built. She took a step back. You didn't lose everything. You gave it away. He swallowed. I need you. That sentence, once sacred, now felt dirty. Madison's voice was soft but firm. You need damage control, not me. No, he insisted. I need my wife. I need my family back. She shook her head. You had a family, and you burned it for something temporary. Connor's breathing grew ragged. Madison, I can fix this. We can fix this. I'll stop seeing her.
You already lost the chance to fix it. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. At that moment, Oliver Stone walked into the children's section, holding a stack of donated books. He stopped when he saw them, sensing the tension instantly. Connor glanced at Oliver, then back at Madison. Who the hell is he? Oliver didn't flinch. A colleague, and someone who respects her. Connor's jaw clenched. Madison, you would choose him over your own husband. She lifted her chin. I'd choose anyone over being lied to again. Connor stepped back as if slapped. For the first time, he realized something terrifying. Madison wasn't bluffing. She wasn't breaking. She was done. That night, after the confrontation at the library, Madison sat on Grace's balcony, wrapped in a soft blanket, watching the Newark skyline flicker in the distance. Harper was asleep inside, finally peaceful. The cold air stung her cheeks, but it grounded her in a way she desperately needed. For the first time since leaving Connor, she felt something steady beneath her feet. Her phone buzzed. A message from Oliver. Are you all right? I didn't mean to intrude today. Just wanted to make sure you're okay. Madison hesitated before typing back. Thank you. It's been a difficult day. A few seconds passed. If you ever need a safe place to talk, I'm here.
As your colleague, nothing more. Something in those words loosened a knot in her chest. No pressure, no expectations, just kindness. Something she hadn't felt from a man in a very long time. The next morning at the library, Oliver returned with a stack of proposals. "We're expanding the literacy program," he explained, "and I want you to lead the children's division." Madison blinked. "Me?" "You're the reason it works," he said simply. "Kids trust you."
Parents trust you. I trust you. The word trust hit harder than he knew. Is this a promotion? Madison asked. It's a partnership, he corrected. More responsibility, higher pay, and a chance to build something of your own. She felt her throat tighten. For years, she had been told, explicitly and subtly, that she wasn't enough. Now someone was placing opportunity directly in her hands. She nodded slowly. "I'd like that." Oliver smiled, a real, warm smile that reached his eyes. "Good. Then we'll start next week." Later that afternoon, Madison walked through the library with a purpose she hadn't felt in years. She reorganized shelves, drafted ideas, even played tag with a few kids in the reading corner. Her laughter came back, quiet, fragile, but genuine. When she picked Harper up from school, her daughter studied her with curious eyes.
Mommy, you look happy.
Madison brushed a curl from Harper's forehead. "I think I'm learning how to be again." Harper grinned and squeezed her hand. As they walked to the car, Madison realized something profound. She didn't need Connor's approval. She didn't need the marriage she fought so hard for. She didn't need to stay small to keep peace. She was rebuilding, brick by brick, step by step, day by day. And this time, the life she was creating was finally hers. A week later, Madison sat at her new desk in the library's renovated community room, surrounded by bright posters, stacks of children's books, and a binder labeled Director, Youth Literacy Initiative. Her hands rested on the smooth surface of a brand new MacBook Air, an onboarding gift from the program, not from a man expecting gratitude, but from a team that believed in her. She had never felt this kind of pride before. Not the shaky kind built from trying to hold her marriage together, but a deep, steady pride in herself. That afternoon, she picked Harper up from school, and they stopped by Barnes & Noble for a surprise. Harper ran straight to the children's section, giggling as she skimmed through picture books. Madison watched her daughter, truly watched, seeing how much lighter she seemed, how her shoulders didn't curl in the way they used to when tension filled the house.
Mommy, look!
Harper held up a book with a glittery cover.
Can we read it tonight?
"Of course," Madison said, lifting her into a quick hug. On their way home, the setting sun cast warm gold across the street. And for a brief moment, everything felt still, safe, manageable. At dinner, Harper slid a folded paper across the table.
I made something for you.
Madison opened it carefully. A drawing. 2 stick figures holding hands, one tall, one small, both smiling. Above them, in uneven crayon letters, "Me and Mummy, happy again." Madison's breath caught. Tears pricked her eyes, not from pain this time, but from a healing so gentle it nearly undid her. "Do you like it?" Harper asked shyly. Madison pulled her daughter into her lap. "I love it, more than anything." Later that night, as Harper slept, Madison sat on the couch with the drawing beside her. She traced the lines with her fingers and felt something open inside her, a release, a letting go. She didn't need Connor's validation. She didn't need the old life she once begged to save. She didn't even need closure. She had peace. Her phone buzzed on the table. A message from Connor. "We should talk. I want to fix things." Madison looked at the screen for a long moment, then turned the phone off. Fixing things was no longer her responsibility. She was building something new, for Harper, for herself, and maybe, someday, for someone who knew how to treat her heart with care. 2 months later, the world felt different. Not louder, not brighter, but cleaner. Madison walked through the library's new community wing, greeting kids, shelving books, answering questions. She moved with confidence now, not shrinking, not apologizing for taking up space. Harper skipped beside her after school, her backpack bouncing with every step, her laugh echoing in the hallway like sunlight. Madison's life wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful, and that was a kind of freedom she had never known. That Friday, the library hosted a small event for the literacy program. Parents gathered, kids read aloud, and soft music played from a speaker in the corner. Oliver Stone arrived late, carrying 2 trays of pastries from a local bakery.
"Thought we could use reinforcements," he joked as he set them down.
Madison smiled, genuinely. "You're always saving the day." "Not saving," he corrected softly. "Supporting." Their eyes met for a second too long, warm and steady, but neither rushed it. There was no pressure between them, just possibility. After the event, when the last family left, Oliver handed Madison a file. "This is for you," he said. "A formal offer to expand your role. Full-time director, benefits, a team under you." Madison blinked. "Oliver, this is huge." "You earned it," he said. "Not because you survived something painful, but because you're good at what you do." Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. Not from sadness, from validation, from being seen. Before she could respond, the front doors opened sharply. Connor. He strode inside, suit wrinkled, eyes tired, desperation hanging off him like a shadow. "Madison," he said loudly, "we need to talk." Oliver took a subtle step closer, not possessive, just protective. Madison lifted her chin. "Say what you need to say." Connor swallowed. "I'm sorry. For everything. I lost my job, my reputation, and I know I don't deserve another chance, but—" "You're right," Madison said calmly. "You don't." Connor blinked. "Madison, I'm rebuilding my life," she said, voice steady. "And Harper's. Without chaos. Without lies." Connor's shoulders slumped. "So, this is really it?" Madison nodded. "It was over the moment you made our daughter feel small." He exhaled shakily, defeated. Then he left, the door closing softly behind him. Oliver looked at her gently. "You okay?" Madison let out a slow breath, light, relieved, free. "Yes," she said.
For the first time, yes.
Harper ran up then, wrapping her arms around her mother's waist. Madison lifted her, spinning her playfully. Their laughter filled the room. She had lost a marriage, but gained herself, and gained a future she had once been too afraid to imagine. So, that's how the story ends. And if you're still here, listening until this very moment, then something in this journey must have touched your heart in a way words alone can't explain. Maybe you saw a little of yourself in Madison, the strength you forgot you had, the quiet battles no one else sees, the courage it takes to finally choose peace over pain. You know, the Stoics used to say, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Real strength is choosing what to hold on to and what to let go. And Madison's story is exactly that. A reminder that healing is not loud, dramatic, or subtle.
Sometimes it's just a woman waking up one day and deciding,
I deserve better. My child deserves better. And she walks forward, even when her legs shake. If this story reached you, even just a little, then don't leave quietly. Let's keep building a place where people heal together. Hit like, share this video with someone who might need it, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next story. You matter. Your heart matters. And sometimes, new beginnings come disguised as endings. Before we end, I want to gently remind everyone that this entire story is a work of fiction, created solely for emotional reflection and entertainment. The characters, events, and situations were written to explore real-life feelings, heartbreak, healing, resilience, but they are not based on any specific person or actual event.
Stories like this help us look at life from a safe distance, giving us space to understand our own experiences a little better. If any part of this touched you, it's because emotions are universal, not because the events truly happened. So please enjoy this content as a narrative meant to inspire, not as factual information. Thank you for supporting the channel, for watching responsibly, and for being part of this community that values empathy, growth, and honest storytelling.